So James came home from his bachelor party last Saturday night absolutely hammered and starts going off about how his boys think I'm crazy and controlling. I'm like, what the hell are you talking about? And this fool starts laughing and tells me they took a vote on whether he should dump me before the wedding. A vote. Like I'm some kind of referendum on their stupid group chat. Apparently the whole thing started because his friend Tommy was asking why Victoria wasn't invited to our wedding. You know, Victoria, his ex-girlfriend from college who he dated for 3 years and who still comments heart eye emojis on every single one of his Instagram posts. Yeah, that Victoria. The same one who shows up to every group event even though they broke up 2 years ago and acts like she's still part of their little friend circle. James starts defending me at first, saying it's normal that fiancés don't invite their partner's exes to their wedding. But then Tommy goes off about how Victoria is practically family to their group and how I'm being unreasonable. And instead of shutting that down, James apparently just sat there while they all started discussing my personality flaws like I'm some kind of project they need to fix. By the time they were 3 breweries deep, they were full-on debating whether James should call off the wedding because I'm too jealous and insecure. Tommy even pulled up some article on his phone about red flags in relationships and started reading it out loud, pointing out how I supposedly fit half the criteria. The other guys were chiming in with their expert relationship advice, talking about how their girlfriends would never act like this and how I need to learn to be more chill. And my fiancé, the man I'm supposed to marry in 6 weeks, just let them talk about me like that. He didn't defend me, didn't tell them to back off, didn't even leave. He sat there drinking beer and nodding along while his friends dissected our relationship like some kind of group therapy session. The vote was apparently close too. 4 guys said he should dump me, 3 said he should keep me, but make me apologize to Victoria first. And only 2 said I had a right to not invite her. Only 2 out of 9 guys thought I was being reasonable for not wanting my fiancé's ex at our wedding. When James told me all this, he was laughing like it was some hilarious joke, like the fact that his best friends think he should leave me is just boys being boys. He kept saying I should take it as a compliment that they care about him enough to give him honest advice, and that maybe I should consider their perspective because they know him better than anyone. I asked him point blank what he told them when they were voting, and he got all defensive, saying he tried to explain my side, but that I needed to understand how it looks from the outside. How it looks, like I have some kind of obligation to roll out the red carpet for his ex-girlfriend at my own wedding? The worst part is that this isn't even the first time Victoria has caused drama in our relationship. She constantly texts him about random stuff. Oh, I saw this meme that reminded me of you. Oh, remember that time we went to that restaurant? Oh, I'm having car trouble, do you know a good mechanic? And every time I bring it up, James acts like I'm being paranoid and jealous. He says she's just being friendly and that I need to trust him. But here's the thing. I do trust him. I don't trust her. And I definitely don't trust the fact that she's always finding excuses to stay connected to him. When we got engaged, she was one of the first people to comment on our announcement post, talking about how she's so happy for us and can't wait to celebrate. The audacity was incredible. So now I'm supposed to be okay with the fact that his entire friend group thinks I'm some kind of controlling witch who doesn't deserve him? And that my own fiancé sat there and let them vote on our relationship like it's some kind of democracy? I spent all of Sunday trying to process this, and honestly, I keep going back and forth between being hurt and being absolutely furious. Part of me wants to call off the wedding myself, just to see the look on their faces when their precious Victoria doesn't get her invitation anyway. But the bigger part of me is wondering what else James lets his friends say about me when I'm not around. We're supposed to meet with our wedding planner tomorrow to finalize the seating chart, and I have no idea how I'm supposed to sit there and act like everything is normal when I know his friends think he should dump me. The wedding is in 6 weeks, and we've already paid for everything. The venue, the catering, my dress, all of it. I haven't told anyone about this yet because honestly, I'm embarrassed. How do you explain to your family and friends that your fiancé's bachelor party turned into a referendum on whether you're worth marrying? My sister Carly is already suspicious because she thinks James is too close to his friend group anyway, and if I tell her about this, she's going to lose her mind. The thing is, I know I'm not being unreasonable about Victoria. Every single one of my married friends has told me that not inviting exes is completely normal and expected. My cousin didn't invite her husband's ex, my coworker didn't invite her husband's ex, even my mom didn't invite any of my dad's exes to their wedding. It's not jealousy, it's just basic common sense and respect for boundaries. But James keeps making me feel like I'm the crazy one. Like I'm supposed to be this cool girl who's totally fine with his ex being at our wedding, texting him whenever she wants, and inserting herself into every aspect of our relationship. And now his friends are backing him up, making me feel like there's something wrong with me for having normal boundaries. I keep thinking about what they must have said about me that James didn't repeat. If he was willing to tell me about the vote, what else did they say that he's keeping to himself? Did they talk about how I look? How I act around them? Did they bring up other things I've done that they think are red flags? The whole thing has me questioning everything about our relationship. If James really thought I was being unreasonable, why didn't he just talk to me about it privately instead of letting his friends debate it at his bachelor party? And if he thinks his friends are right, why is he still planning to marry me? I need advice because I have no idea how to handle this. Do I confront his friends directly? Do I demand that James defend me to them? Do I just pretend this never happened and hope it doesn't come up again? Or do I seriously consider whether I want to marry someone who lets his friends vote on whether I'm good enough for him? The wedding is so close and everything is planned, but I'm starting to wonder if I'm making a huge mistake. How am I supposed to walk down that aisle knowing that half his groomsmen think he should dump me instead? First update. First off, thank you to everyone who told me I wasn't being crazy about the Victoria thing. Reading all your responses made me realize just how messed up this whole situation really is. The comment about how his friends basically held a tribunal about my worthiness really hit home. That's exactly what this was. So we had our appointment with the wedding planner at this little office in the shopping center near our apartment. James was acting like everything was totally normal, talking about centerpieces and whether we wanted the fish or chicken option. I'm sitting there trying to focus, but all I can think about is how his groomsmen think he should dump me. Finally, I couldn't take it anymore and told our planner, Rachel, that we needed a few minutes alone. The second she left the room, I started going off about how I couldn't stop thinking about what he told me. James immediately started saying I was blowing everything out of proportion, that guys talk trash when they're drinking and I shouldn't take it so seriously. But here's where it gets really messed up. When I pressed him for more details about what exactly they said about me, he let slip that Tommy had been talking about this for months. Apparently, every time we hang out with the group, Tommy makes comments to the other guys about how I'm too uptight, or how James was more fun before he got with me, and James has just been sitting there listening to this crap for months without ever telling me or shutting it down. I asked him why the hell he didn't tell me that his best friend has been trashing me behind my back, and James got mad at me for making him feel like he had to choose between his friends and his fiancé. He started going on about how Tommy has been his friend since college, and how he can't just cut him off because Tommy doesn't love everything about me. The conversation got really heated, and James finally admitted that maybe some of what Tommy says isn't totally wrong. He said he's noticed that I do get jealous when Victoria comes up, and that maybe I could try being more understanding about their friendship. He actually had the nerve to suggest that I should reach out to Victoria myself and try to build a relationship with her so his friends would see that I'm not the controlling person they think I am. I literally could not believe what I was hearing. My own fiancé was sitting there telling me that maybe his friends have a point about me being jealous and controlling. After 3 years together, after proposing to me, after planning this whole wedding, he's suddenly questioning whether their concerns are valid. I told him that if he thought his friends were right about me, then maybe we shouldn't be getting married at all. And instead of immediately saying no, of course not, I love you, he got quiet for a really long time, like he was actually considering it. Then he said that he loves me, but he's worried about how his friends feel about our relationship, because these are the people who are going to be in our lives forever. Our wedding planner knocked on the door asking if everything was okay because we'd been in there for like 30 minutes, and James just smiled and said we were fine and asked if we could reschedule. The whole ride home, we didn't say a word to each other, and I could tell he was thinking about everything his friends had said. That night when we got home, James tried to smooth things over by saying he didn't mean to make me feel bad, but then he brought up the Victoria thing again. He said that maybe if I just gave her a chance and tried to be friends with her, it would show his friends that I'm not threatened by her and that I trust him. He kept saying that she's really nice once you get to know her and that she's not trying to cause problems between us. But then, and this is the part that really got to me, he admitted that Victoria had been asking him about our wedding plans. Not just casual questions, but detailed stuff like where we're having it, and when, and whether she might get an invitation after all. James told her that I was handling the guest list and that it probably wasn't going to work out, but he said it in this apologetic way like he was sorry she couldn't come. I asked him why Victoria would think she might get invited in the first place, and he got all uncomfortable and said that maybe he hadn't been clear enough with her about boundaries. Apparently he's been talking to her about our wedding planning and our relationship issues, including the fact that I don't want her there. So she knows that I'm the reason she's not invited, and she's been trying to work around me by talking to James directly about it. This whole time I thought Victoria was just being inappropriate by staying in touch with my fiancé, but it turns out James has been telling her personal stuff about our relationship and our wedding plans. He's been making me out to be the bad guy who won't let her come to the wedding, instead of just telling her that it's not appropriate for an ex to be there. When I confronted him about this, James said he was just trying to be honest with her because she's been part of his friend group for so long. He said it would be weird to suddenly start being secretive about his life when she asks him questions. But I pointed out that there's a difference between being secretive and sharing intimate details about our relationship and our wedding with his ex-girlfriend. The fight continued the next day when James suggested we should all meet up at the sports bar near his office. Him, me, Victoria, and maybe a couple of the other friends, so that I could see for myself that Victoria isn't trying to cause trouble. He thought if I just spent some time with her, I'd realize she's harmless and his friends would see that I'm not actually jealous or controlling. I told him absolutely not. That I wasn't going to put myself in some weird situation where I have to prove to his ex-girlfriend and his friends that I'm cool enough to deserve him. The fact that he even suggested it showed me how completely backwards his thinking is about this whole situation. But James kept pushing, saying that if I really trusted him, then I should be willing to spend time with Victoria. He said my refusal to even meet with her was just proving his friend's point about me being insecure and controlling. He made it sound like the mature, confident thing to do would be to sit down with his ex and hash things out like adults. I tried to explain to him that this wasn't about trust or insecurity, it was about appropriate boundaries in our relationship. But he kept coming back to what his friends think and how it looks to other people. He said that everyone in their friend group is confused about why I won't even try to get along with Victoria, and that it's creating tension for everyone. The whole conversation made me realize that James cares more about what his friends think than about how I feel. He's more worried about looking like the guy whose fiancé won't let him be friends with his ex than he is about the fact that his friends think he should dump me. Thursday afternoon, I was at Target picking up some stuff for work when I ran into Mila, one of James's co-workers from his job. We've met a few times at company happy hours, and she's always been really friendly. She was in the pharmacy section grabbing some allergy medicine, and we ended up talking while we waited in line. She mentioned that she'd heard about our wedding coming up and how exciting it must be, but then she got this weird look on her face and asked if everything was okay. When I asked what she meant, she said that James had seemed really stressed lately and that he'd been talking to some of the guys at work about relationship stuff. My stomach dropped because I realized James has been discussing our problems at work too, not just with his friend group. Mila said she didn't want to get involved, but that she'd overheard James talking to Earl about whether it's normal for fiancés to be jealous of their partner's female friends. She said it seemed like he was asking for advice about how to handle a situation with someone who was being unreasonable about boundaries. I couldn't believe he was making me sound like the problem to his coworkers too. Mila could tell I was upset and said she probably shouldn't have said anything. But then she mentioned that Earl had told James that some women just can't handle their partner having female friends, and that maybe James needed to be firmer about setting expectations. So now I'm finding out that not only have his college friends been discussing whether he should dump me, but his coworkers think I'm some kind of jealous girlfriend who can't handle him having female friends. James has been painting this picture of me as this insecure, controlling person to everyone in his life, and I had no idea. When I got home and confronted James about talking to his coworkers about our relationship, he tried to downplay it by saying he was just venting about wedding stress and asking for advice. But I pointed out that asking whether it's normal for fiancés to be jealous is not the same as venting about wedding planning. He was specifically framing me as the problem and asking other people to validate that I was being unreasonable. James said that I talked to my friends about our relationship too, so why can't he talk to his friends about it? But I explained that there's a difference between talking through problems with close friends and presenting a one-sided version of events to coworkers and acquaintances. When I talk to Carly or my close friends about relationship stuff, I'm looking for actual advice and perspective. James is looking for people to agree with him that I'm being difficult. The fight escalated when James accused me of being paranoid and said that maybe his friends and coworkers are noticing something that I can't see about my own behavior. He said that when multiple people are telling you the same thing, maybe you should consider that they might have a point instead of assuming everyone else is wrong. I couldn't believe he was actually suggesting that I should take relationship advice from Earl and Tommy, who still acts like he's in a frat. But James kept insisting that outside perspective is valuable and that I'm too close to the situation to see it objectively. He said that maybe I should consider that my boundaries aren't as reasonable as I think they are. Friday morning, I had to leave early for a work presentation, and when I was grabbing my keys from the kitchen counter, I noticed James's phone was plugged in and lit up with a text notification. I wasn't trying to snoop, but the preview showed Victoria's name and something about wedding planning. Without even thinking about it, I picked up his phone to see what she was saying. The message was asking whether James had talked to me about reconsidering the guest list, and whether there was any chance I might change my mind about including her. But when I scrolled up to see the rest of their conversation, I found weeks of messages between them that I had no idea existed. Victoria had been texting James regularly about all kinds of stuff: work drama, family issues, random thoughts about their college days. But mixed in with all the casual conversation were messages about our relationship and our wedding. She kept asking about how wedding planning was going and whether I was being difficult about anything. James would respond by complaining about how stressed I was making him with all my opinions and expectations. In one conversation from a few weeks ago, Victoria was commiserating with James about how hard it must be to plan a wedding with someone who has such strong opinions about everything. James responded by saying that sometimes he wondered if he and Victoria would have had an easier relationship because she was always so laid back about stuff. Victoria replied with a bunch of crying, laughing emojis and said that some people are just naturally more high maintenance than others. They were literally talking about me like I was some kind of difficult burden that James had to deal with. And Victoria was encouraging it, positioning herself as the cool, easygoing girl who would never cause problems like I do. But the worst part was finding messages where James was telling Victoria specific details about our fights. He told her about the time I got upset because she liked all his Instagram posts, and Victoria responded by saying she hadn't even realized she was doing that and that she'd be more careful. James told her she didn't need to change anything, that I was just being sensitive. There were messages about our arguments over the guest list, our disagreements about the wedding budget. James was sharing intimate details about our relationship with his ex-girlfriend, and she was responding with advice and commentary like she was some kind of relationship expert. When James got home from work Friday night, I didn't even give him a chance to make excuses. I just started reading the messages out loud and watching his face change as he realized how completely screwed he was. He tried to explain by saying that he and Victoria have always been able to talk about anything, and that he values her perspective because she knows him so well. He said he wasn't trying to betray my trust. He was just working through his feelings with someone who understands him. But I pointed out that working through your feelings about your relationship with your ex-girlfriend is not normal or appropriate when you're engaged to someone else. James got frustrated and said that I was making this into something it wasn't, that Victoria was just being a supportive friend and helping him navigate a stressful time. But I read him the message where she said some people are naturally more high maintenance and asked him how that was being supportive of our relationship. He couldn't answer that. So instead he got mad at me for going through his phone and violating his privacy. He said that if I trusted him, I wouldn't feel the need to check his messages, and that my snooping was just proving his friend's point about me being controlling and insecure. I told him that finding out my fiancé has been sharing intimate details about our relationship with his ex-girlfriend is not about trust or insecurity. It's about basic respect and appropriate boundaries. But James kept trying to flip it back on me, saying that healthy relationships require trust, and that I was looking for problems where none existed. My sister Carly called me Thursday night just to check in about wedding stuff, and I ended up telling her everything. She was absolutely furious and said she's been worried about James's friend group from the beginning because they're all still acting like they're in college. She pointed out that it's weird for a group of guys in their late 20s to be so invested in each other's relationships, and that healthy friend groups don't vote on whether someone should break up with their partner. Carly also said something that really stuck with me. She asked why James needs his friend's approval to marry me. If he loves me and wants to spend his life with me, why does it matter what Tommy or anyone else thinks? The fact that he's so concerned about their opinion suggests that maybe he's not as sure about our relationship as he claims to be. But when I told her about the messages with Victoria, Carly lost her mind completely. She said that James is basically having an emotional affair and using Victoria as a sounding board for all his relationship problems, instead of working through them with me. She pointed out that going to your ex for advice about your current relationship is the definition of inappropriate, and that Victoria is obviously encouraging the drama because she enjoys being positioned as the understanding one. Carly said I needed to seriously consider whether I wanted to marry someone who discusses our private business with his ex-girlfriend and lets his friends vote on whether I'm good enough for him. She said that this kind of behavior doesn't get better after marriage. It gets worse, because then he'll feel like he has even more ownership over the relationship. Saturday morning, James tried to smooth things over by suggesting we take a day trip to the outlet mall about an hour away to look for some last-minute wedding stuff. I think he was hoping that spending time together outside of our apartment would help us get back to normal, but I was still fuming about everything I'd discovered. While we were walking through the mall, James kept trying to bring up wedding details like nothing had happened. He wanted to talk about whether we should upgrade the flowers and whether we had enough RSVPs back yet. But I kept thinking about how he'd been complaining to Victoria about my opinions and expectations, and how his friends think he should dump me. When we stopped at the food court for lunch, James finally addressed the elephant in the room by saying that maybe we should talk to his friends together so I could see for myself that they don't actually dislike me. He suggested having everyone over for dinner so I could show them that I'm not the controlling person they think I am. I told him I wasn't interested in auditioning for his friends' approval, and that the fact that he thought I should have to prove myself to them showed how completely backwards his priorities are. But James kept insisting that it would help clear the air, and that once they got to know me better, they'd realize their concerns were unfounded. The conversation got heated right there in the middle of the food court, with James saying I was being stubborn, and me pointing out that I shouldn't have to campaign for my own fiancé's friends to think I'm worthy of him. A couple of teenagers at the next table were obviously listening to us argue, and I felt mortified that we were having this conversation in public. But James didn't seem to care about the scene we were making. He kept pushing his point about how important his friends' opinions are to him, and how he needs them to be comfortable with our relationship. He said that if I really loved him, I'd make an effort to build relationships with the people who matter to him, even if it was uncomfortable for me. I'm supposed to meet with my mom this weekend to talk about final details for the bridal shower, but now I don't even know what to tell her. How do you explain that your fiancé's friends think he should dump you, and that he's not completely disagreeing with them? How do you admit that your fiancé has been discussing your private relationship details with his ex-girlfriend and asking his coworkers for advice on how to handle your unreasonable behavior? The wedding is 5 weeks away, and I feel like I don't even know the person I'm supposed to marry anymore. The man I fell in love with would never have let his friends vote on our relationship or shared intimate details about our fights with his ex. But apparently that man never existed. Or James has changed into someone completely different. I keep going back and forth between feeling hurt and feeling absolutely livid. Part of me wants to call off the wedding just to see how his precious friends react when their vote doesn't matter anymore. But the bigger part of me is starting to wonder if maybe they're right. Maybe James and I aren't as compatible as I thought we were. Second update. Well, things have escalated in ways I never could have predicted, and I'm honestly questioning everything about this man I thought I knew. First, thank you to everyone who told me I needed to stand my ground. The comments about how James is basically having an emotional affair with Victoria really opened my eyes to how serious this is. And to the person who said his friends sound like a toxic boys club, you were absolutely right. So Sunday, I was supposed to meet my mom at this little cafe near her house to go over bridal shower details. My mom has been so excited about this wedding and has been planning this shower for months. She had this whole list of games and decorations and was talking about how proud she was that I found such a great guy. I kept trying to focus on what she was saying about the menu and the guest list, but all I could think about was James telling Victoria that I'm high maintenance and his friends voting on whether he should dump me. Finally, my mom stopped talking and asked what was wrong because I obviously wasn't listening. I tried to brush it off and say I was just stressed about wedding planning, but my mom knows me too well. She kept pushing until I finally broke down and told her everything. The bachelor party vote, James sharing our private business with Victoria, the messages I found, all of it. My mom was furious. Like I have never seen her this angry in my entire life. She started going off about how James has disrespected not just me, but our entire family by allowing his friends to discuss our relationship like that. She said that a real man doesn't let his buddies trash talk his fiancé, and he certainly doesn't go crying to his ex-girlfriend about relationship problems. Then my mom said something that really hit me hard. She asked if I had told my dad about any of this, and when I said no, she said I needed to tell him immediately. She said my dad would be absolutely devastated to know that James has been letting people disrespect his daughter this way, and that he deserves to know what kind of man he's about to welcome into our family. The thought of having to tell my dad about this made me realize how humiliating this whole situation really is. My parents have been so supportive of James and so excited about the wedding. They've been bragging to their friends about their future son-in-law and talking about how happy they are that I found someone who treats me well. How am I supposed to tell them that he's actually been letting his friends debate whether I'm worthy of him? My mom canceled the rest of our bridal shower planning and said we needed to have a serious family conversation. She called my dad and asked him to come meet us at the house because we needed to talk about something important. The whole drive over there, I was dreading having to explain this mess to him. When we got to my parents' house, my dad was waiting in the living room with this concerned look on his face. My mom sat down next to him and told me to explain everything from the beginning. So I had to go through the whole story again. The vote, the Victoria messages, everything. My dad got quiet in that scary way he does when he's really angry. He didn't interrupt or ask questions, he just sat there listening with his jaw getting tighter and tighter. When I finished talking, he was quiet for a long time before he finally spoke. He said that in 35 years of marriage, he has never once let his friends criticize my mom, and he's never shared private details about their relationship with other women. He said that protecting your partner from disrespect is one of the most basic responsibilities of being in a relationship, and that James has failed at that in every possible way. Then my dad asked if James had ever apologized for any of this, or if he was planning to cut contact with Victoria and set boundaries with his friends. When I admitted that James still thinks I'm overreacting and wants me to meet with Victoria to prove I'm not controlling, my dad looked like he wanted to punch something. My mom suggested that maybe they should have a conversation with James directly, and I panicked because I could picture how badly that would go. James would probably get defensive and make it sound like I was being dramatic, and then my parents would think even less of him. But my dad said that if James is going to be part of this family, he needs to understand that disrespecting me means disrespecting all of us. Monday morning, I had to go back to work, and I was honestly grateful for the distraction. My coworker Natalie noticed I seemed off and asked if everything was okay with wedding planning. I didn't want to get into the whole story at work, but I ended up telling her about the bachelor party situation. Natalie was shocked and said that her husband's friends would never dream of doing something like that. She said that when you're in a committed relationship, your partner should be defending you to their friends, not letting them vote on whether you're good enough. But then Natalie said something that really stuck with me. She asked if I had noticed any other red flags in my relationship with James that I might have been ignoring. She said that usually when guys let their friends disrespect their girlfriends, there are other signs of problems that get overlooked. I started thinking about it, and I realized there have been other times when James has prioritized other people's opinions over my feelings. Like when we were looking at apartments and he kept wanting to get input from Tommy about which neighborhood we should choose, even though Tommy doesn't even live in our city. Or when we were planning our engagement party and James kept changing the details based on what his friends suggested, even when I had already made decisions about things. I've always just thought of James as someone who values other people's input, but now I'm wondering if he's actually just someone who doesn't trust his own judgment or mine. Maybe the Victoria thing and the bachelor party vote are just part of a bigger pattern of him looking to other people for validation about our relationship. That afternoon, I got a text from James asking if we could meet at the park near our apartment to talk. He said he'd been thinking about our conversation over the weekend and wanted to clear the air. I agreed because I was hoping he had finally realized how messed up his behavior has been. When I got to the park, James was sitting on one of the benches near the playground, looking all serious. He started off by saying that he'd been doing some soul-searching, and that he understood why I was upset about the messages with Victoria. He said he could see how it would look inappropriate from my perspective. I thought maybe we were finally getting somewhere, but then he said that he still thought I was overreacting to the bachelor party thing. He said that his friends were just looking out for him, and that maybe I should consider their perspective instead of just being offended by it. He claimed that they weren't trying to be mean. They were just concerned about whether we're really compatible. I asked him point blank whether he thought his friends were right about me being controlling and jealous. James hesitated for way too long before saying that he thought there might be some truth to their concerns, but that he loves me anyway and wants to work through it. Loves me anyway. Like my personality flaws are something he has to tolerate instead of something he actually appreciates about me. Like he's doing me some kind of favor by staying with me despite my obvious inadequacies. I told him that if he really thinks I'm controlling and jealous, then maybe we shouldn't be getting married. A marriage should be between two people who actually like each other, not someone who thinks his partner has fundamental personality problems that need to be fixed. James backtracked and said he didn't mean it like that, but then he started talking about how we could work on our communication and maybe do couples counseling to address some of these issues. He made it sound like going to therapy was something I needed to prove that I was willing to change my controlling behavior. The conversation got heated when I pointed out that the real problem isn't my personality. It's the fact that he discusses our private business with his ex-girlfriend and lets his friends vote on our relationship. James got frustrated and said that I was missing the point, that the issue is how other people perceive our dynamic, not just what we think about it ourselves. He kept insisting that outside perspective is valuable, and that maybe we're both too close to the situation to see it clearly. But I pointed out that his friends and Victoria are not neutral observers. They have their own opinions and agendas that aren't necessarily in our best interest. Then James said something that really made me see red. He said that maybe the reason I don't want outside input is because deep down, I know that some of their criticisms are valid, and I'm afraid of having to confront my own behavior. I couldn't believe he was trying to turn this back on me and make it seem like I was the one with the problem. I told him that I'm not afraid of criticism. I'm angry that my fiancé thinks it's appropriate to let other people evaluate whether I'm good enough for him instead of making that decision himself. James said that he has made that decision. He proposed to me, but that doesn't mean we shouldn't listen to feedback from people who care about us. He said that marriages work best when both partners are willing to grow and change based on input from their community. But I pointed out that his community seems to consist mainly of people who think I'm the problem, not people who are actually invested in helping our relationship succeed. His friends voted that he should dump me, and his ex-girlfriend thinks I'm high maintenance. That's not a supportive community. That's a group of people who don't want us to be together. Finally, I asked him directly what he wants from me. Does he want me to apologize to Victoria? Does he want me to invite her to the wedding? Does he want me to sit down with his friends and let them explain to me why I'm not good enough for him? James said that he wants me to make an effort to build relationships with the people who are important to him, even if it's uncomfortable. He said that if I really love him, I should be willing to prove to his friends that their concerns are unfounded, instead of just being offended that they have concerns in the first place. I told him that I'm not going to audition for his friends' approval, and that the fact that he thinks I should is a bigger red flag than anything I've supposedly done wrong. A partner who loves and respects you doesn't make you prove your worth to other people. Wednesday evening, I was at the grocery store picking up stuff for dinner when I ran into Deborah, James's mom. We've always gotten along pretty well, and she seemed excited to see me. She started talking about how much she's looking forward to the wedding and asking about final details. But then she mentioned that James had told her we were having some pre-wedding stress and that she hoped we were working through it okay. I tried to keep it vague and just said that wedding planning can be overwhelming, but Deborah kept pushing for details. Finally, she said that James had mentioned I was having some concerns about his female friendships, and she wanted me to know that she thought it was important for married couples to maintain their individual relationships. She said that when she and James's dad got married, she had to learn to be comfortable with his female friends, and that it made their marriage stronger. I realized that James had been talking to his mother about our relationship problems too, and probably presenting it as me being jealous of his friendships, rather than him having inappropriate conversations with his ex. Deborah clearly had no idea about the Victoria messages or the bachelor party vote. She just knew that I was uncomfortable with James's female friends. Deborah went on to say that she hoped I would give Victoria a chance because she's such a sweet girl and has been part of their friend group for so long. She said that Victoria has always been very respectful of James's relationships and that she didn't think I had anything to worry about. I wanted to tell her about the text messages and how Victoria has been encouraging James to see me as high maintenance, but I didn't want to get into a confrontation with my future mother-in-law in the middle of the grocery store. Instead, I just said that I appreciated her advice and that James and I were working through our communication. But the whole interaction made me realize that James has been talking to everyone in his life about our relationship problems. His friends, his coworkers, his ex-girlfriend, and now his mother. And in every case, he's presenting himself as the reasonable one who's trying to deal with his difficult fiancé. When I got home and told James about running into his mother, he said that it's normal to talk to your family about relationship issues. But I pointed out that there's a difference between asking for advice and complaining about your partner to everyone who will listen. James said that he's not complaining about me. He's trying to get perspective on how to handle a difficult situation. But I asked him why he never talks to me directly about these concerns, instead of discussing them with everyone else first. Why does Victoria get to hear about our problems before I do? Why do his friends get to vote on our relationship before we even have a conversation about their concerns? Thursday morning, I was supposed to have a final dress fitting, but I called and canceled because I honestly can't imagine walking down the aisle to marry someone who thinks his friends' opinions matter more than mine. The whole thing feels surreal, like I'm planning a wedding for a relationship that doesn't actually exist. I keep thinking about what my dad said about protecting your partner from disrespect. James hasn't just failed to protect me from disrespect. He's actively participated in it. He's encouraged his friends to criticize me. He's given his ex-girlfriend ammunition to judge our relationship, and he's made me sound like a problem to be solved rather than a person to be loved. The wedding is 4 weeks away, and I still don't know what I'm going to do. My sister Carly keeps texting me, asking how things are going, and I know she's going to tell me to run if I give her the full update. My parents are waiting to hear whether I want them to have that conversation with James. And James is acting like everything is fine and we're just having normal pre-wedding jitters. And this is why I said he has no idea what's coming. I've been doing some thinking of my own. And I've realized that if James wants outside perspective on our relationship so badly, maybe it's time he got some perspective he wasn't expecting. The question is whether I have the guts to actually go through with what I'm planning. Because once I do this, there's no going back. And James is going to realize that he seriously underestimated the woman he's been calling controlling and jealous. Stay tuned, because the next update is going to be a doozy. Last update. Okay, everyone, this is it. The moment you've all been waiting for. James thought he could let his friends vote on whether I'm good enough for him and share our private business with his ex. Well, he was about to find out exactly what kind of woman he's been calling controlling and jealous. First, I want to thank everyone who told me to stand my ground and not let this man disrespect me. The comment about how I should give James the same energy he's been giving me really stuck with me. But what happened next was something I never could have predicted. Wednesday afternoon, my sister Carly was driving back from her dentist appointment when she decided to stop by that little shopping plaza near downtown to grab some stuff from Target. She was walking through the parking lot when she spotted James's car parked outside the flower shop. Carly thought maybe he was finally getting me flowers to apologize for all the drama we'd been having, so she decided to wait and see if he wanted company or needed help picking something out. She parked a few spots away and was about to get out when James came walking out of the flower shop with this massive bouquet of red roses. She was actually happy for a second, thinking he was making a grand gesture to fix things between us. But then, instead of getting in his car and driving toward our apartment, James drove in the completely opposite direction. Carly got curious and decided to follow him because something felt off about the whole situation. Why would he buy me flowers and then drive away from where I live? She kept a safe distance behind him as he drove about 15 minutes across town to park, which is this big area with walking trails and an old amusement park section. That's when she saw her. Victoria was waiting on a bench near the carousel wearing this cute little sundress and looking like she was posing for some kind of romantic movie. James walked up to her with those roses, my roses that I thought were for me, and handed them to her like they were meeting for some kind of date. Carly said she literally could not believe what she was seeing. James was supposed to be my fiancé, dealing with pre-wedding stress, and here he was giving romantic flowers to his ex-girlfriend in a park like they were teenagers sneaking around. But it got so much worse. Victoria jumped up and threw her arms around James when she saw the flowers, and they hugged for way longer than any normal friend hug. Then they sat down on that bench together, and James had his arm around her shoulders, while she was snuggled up against him, looking at the roses and smelling them. Carly said they looked like a couple who'd been together for years, not like a guy who was supposed to be marrying someone else in 3 weeks. Victoria had her head on James's shoulder, and they were talking really intimately, with James stroking her hair and Victoria touching his chest. At one point, Victoria looked up at James with this dreamy expression and said something that made him laugh and leaned down to kiss her forehead. Then she turned toward him more, and they were face to face, just staring into each other's eyes like something straight out of a romance novel. My sister recording all of this on her phone. She got clear video of James giving Victoria the roses, them sitting together all cuddled up, him stroking her hair, the forehead kiss, all of it. The video clearly shows James being affectionate and romantic with his ex-girlfriend while he's engaged to me. Carly said she sat there for almost an hour watching them act like a couple. They got up and walked around the park holding hands, went on the carousel together laughing and acting all playful, and then went back to their bench to sit close together some more. When Carly finally drove home, she was shaking. She was so angry. She called me immediately and told me everything, and I honestly didn't believe her at first. I thought maybe she was mistaken about what she was seeing, or that there was some innocent explanation. But then she showed me the video, and I just lost it. There was my fiancé, the man who'd been telling me I was jealous and controlling for not wanting his ex at our wedding, literally having what looked like a romantic date with that same ex-girlfriend, buying her flowers, cuddling with her, acting like they were together. All those months of James telling me that Victoria was just a friend, that I was being paranoid about their relationship, that I needed to trust him and stop being so insecure. Meanwhile, he was meeting up with her in secret and treating her like his girlfriend. I was so angry I could barely think straight. So I decided to go through with my original plan for the family meeting. But now I had nuclear evidence. Friday evening, I texted James and told him I wanted to have that serious conversation about our future with some of the important people in our lives there for support and perspective. I suggested we meet at the community center near our apartment since it has those meeting rooms you can reserve. James was actually excited about this because he thought I was finally agreeing to his stupid idea about getting his friends involved to work things out. He asked if he should invite Tommy and a couple of the other guys, and I said sure, the more perspectives the better. He was so pleased with himself for finally getting me to see reason, but James had no idea what was coming. I got to the community center early and set up in one of the larger meeting rooms. James showed up with Tommy and 2 other guys from his bachelor party crew, looking all confident like they were about to have some kind of intervention where they'd explain to me why I needed to change my behavior. But then my backup arrived. My parents walked in, followed by Carly, and then my Uncle Edward. James's face went completely white when he realized this wasn't going to be the conversation he was expecting. I started the meeting by thanking everyone for coming to discuss James's and my relationship. I said that since James values outside perspectives so much and thinks it's important for other people to weigh in on whether we're compatible, I thought we should get some different viewpoints. Then I asked James to explain to my family what happened at his bachelor party. I wanted him to tell my parents about how his friends took a vote on whether he should dump me because I wouldn't invite his ex-girlfriend to our wedding. James started stammering and trying to downplay it. But Tommy actually defended it and said that they were just being honest about their concerns because they care about James's happiness. That's when my mom opened her folder and started reading excerpts from the text messages between James and Victoria. When I had first discovered those messages on James's phone, I had photographed everything so I'd have proof. And I had shared all the screenshots with my family so they'd know exactly what we were dealing with. She read the ones where Victoria called me high maintenance and where James complained about our private relationship details. And that's when James completely exploded. He jumped up from his chair and started screaming that I had violated his privacy and that going through his phone was psychotic behavior. He was yelling about how I was trying to manipulate everyone by taking his messages out of context and making him look bad. But then James said something that made my blood run cold. He looked directly at my parents and started claiming that the reason I was so paranoid about Victoria was because I had been cheating on him. He said I was projecting my own guilt onto him, and that's why I was so suspicious of his friendships. James kept going, getting louder and more desperate. He started telling my family that I had been acting strange for months, being secretive about my phone, working late more often, and that he'd suspected I was seeing someone else. He said the whole Victoria thing was just me trying to deflect attention from my own affair. Tommy jumped in to support this lie, saying that James had confided in them about his concerns and that they'd all noticed changes in my behavior. The other guys started nodding along, claiming they'd seen me being flirty with other guys when we all hung out together. My sister Carly lost her mind. She started screaming at James about what a pathetic liar he was and how dare he make up disgusting accusations to cover for his own terrible behavior. My dad stood up and his voice was shaking with rage when he told James that he had 30 seconds to take back what he just said before this conversation turned into something much worse. My uncle Edward was trying to calm everyone down, but you could see he was furious too. But James wouldn't back down. He kept insisting that I was cheating and that everyone needed to know the truth about who I really am. He said I was a manipulative liar who was trying to turn everyone against him to cover up my own infidelity. That's when Deborah, James's mother, showed up. Apparently, James had texted her when he realized this wasn't going the way he planned, and she came rushing over to defend her precious son. She walked into this complete chaos with everyone screaming at each other and immediately started attacking my family. Deborah started yelling at my parents about how they raised a daughter who goes through other people's phones and stages public humiliation. She said I was obviously unstable and that James deserved better than someone who would pull a stunt like this. My mom stood up and told Deborah that her son was a cheater and a liar who had been cheating with his ex-girlfriend for months. Deborah screamed back that Victoria was just a friend and that I was too jealous and insecure to handle normal relationships. The whole room was in complete chaos with both families screaming at each other. Deborah was going off about how her son would never cheat and how I was obviously the one with problems if I couldn't trust normal friendships. She said that Victoria has always been respectful of James's relationships and that I was just looking for excuses to cause drama. James started getting even more aggressive, saying that he'd been patient with my jealous behavior for too long and that maybe his friends were right about me being too controlling for marriage. He said that normal women don't go through their partner's phones and stage family confrontations. That's when I finally stood up and pulled out my phone. I told everyone to shut up and watch what I was about to show them. I turned the volume all the way up and hit play on Carly's video. Everyone watched James hand a huge bouquet of roses to Victoria at the park. You could hear Carly's commentary as she filmed him hugging Victoria, sitting with his arm around her, stroking her hair, kissing her forehead. Deborah's face went completely pale as she watched her son acting like a boyfriend with his ex-girlfriend. You could see Victoria looking up at James all lovingly, and James being tender and romantic with her, while he's supposed to be planning a wedding with me. The video was crystal clear. This wasn't just friends hanging out. This was a romantic date between two people who are obviously involved with each other. James tried to grab my phone and delete the video, but my dad blocked him. James was screaming that it wasn't what it looked like, that he was just consoling Victoria because she was going through a hard time, that it was innocent. But Deborah was staring at the video and you could see her whole world crashing down. She asked James when this happened and why he had bought flowers for another woman. She asked why he was touching Victoria like that if they were just friends. James started making up more lies, saying that Victoria had been having family problems and needed a friend, that the flowers were just to cheer her up, that I was taking everything out of context. James was getting more and more desperate, alternating between claiming the video was misleading and trying to turn it back on me for having Carly follow him. He said I was stalking him and violating his privacy, that this proved how controlling and crazy I really am. But my uncle Edward pointed out that James was the one who got caught red-handed having a romantic encounter with his ex-girlfriend, and that trying to blame me for discovering it was just more manipulation. I pulled off my engagement ring and threw it at James. I told him that he could keep making up stories about me, but everyone in this room had just watched him cheating on me with Victoria, while calling me paranoid for being suspicious of their relationship. Deborah was crying and apologizing to my parents, saying she had no idea James had been lying about Victoria. My mom was yelling at James about what a disgusting liar he is for making up cheating accusations when he's the one who was actually cheating. As we were leaving, James was still screaming that I had set him up, and that having me followed proved how unstable I am. But Carly turned around and told him that she happened to see him by accident, and that if he didn't want to get caught cheating, maybe he shouldn't cheat in public places. The aftermath has been absolutely wild. James has been blowing up my phone, alternating between apologizing and claiming that his relationship with Victoria isn't what it looks like. He keeps saying that if I would just let him explain, I'd understand that they're just friends going through a difficult time. But here's the crazy part. Victoria has been posting on social media photos of the roses James gave her. She's literally flaunting their relationship while James is trying to convince me it was innocent. I dodged the biggest bullet of my life. A man who would cheat with his ex while planning our wedding, then make up accusations about me cheating when confronted, is not someone I could ever trust. James thought he was so smart, letting his friends vote on our relationship while secretly dating Victoria on the side, but he had no idea that his lies would catch up to him in such a spectacular way. I'm single, and I've never felt more free.